Hello, everyone. This is episode number 13 with CEO of Salesforge and Mailforge, Frank Sonders, who's thinking out of the box and showing people how to use AI to run leaner, meaner, and more efficient GTM teams. This podcast is sponsored by the GTM AI Academy, your go-to resource for learning how to leverage AI in go-to-market teams and individual roles. You can find this episode on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, LinkedIn, and more. For more, go to gtmaiacademy.com. Let's dive in.
Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everyone. This is Coach K, and I am here with Frank of Salesforge AI, which I'm so excited to have on the show. We actually connected through a mutual friend of James with Replicate, and I've been seeing your stuff all over the place. I hear people randomly talk about your tool, and so I was like, I got to talk to Frank. I'd love to see what your thoughts are on AI and go-to-market. So first off, welcome. I'd love to start with you kind of introducing yourself. If you go to his LinkedIn, you'll see a smattering of stuff. You have marketing background, you have sales background, you're members of tons of different places, you're an entrepreneur. I'd love to know a little bit more about your history and what kind of guided you to what you're doing now.
Yeah, so hey guys, Frank Sonders. Yeah, so like you mentioned, John, started my career at Google actually, working for a big corporate company and and then I went over to work for a bunch of SaaS companies. That's also where I sort of met James at SimilarWeb, and then I moved on to work for a company in New York called Black Crow. And then I was leading sort of my last gig, a sales team of about 50 before I departed and decided to build Salesforge. And really the epiphany kind of happened where I saw that typically the only way to attain target was to ramp more headcount. And I thought that was the wrong way to look at the world, as in, we need more humans to be doing more sales. And I thought there has to be a software that helps you to attain target, but with the least possible headcount. And that software did not exist until Salesforge essentially came to light. So ultimately what Salesforge does, it helps you to keep your sort of sales team lean and mean. And it helps to deliver at this stage unique emails in any language to your prospects, where we do web crawling. We essentially check out the website, we check out the LinkedIn profile of the prospect, and then we marry it sort of with what is it that you sell. And so you have to outline your value prop in the software. And so we're marrying these two data sets, and then we leveraging multiple large language models to do what we call a computation. And we deliver essentially a unique email to that prospect, and we do that very efficiently while also safeguarding the deliverability of your infrastructure. Now, just briefly on the infrastructure side, so these days, with everything that's happening in the world of email and deliverability, and Gmail sort of introducing restrictions in February, you can't be essentially sending any more emails out of your primary domain, because you can't be getting these spam reports from your prospects or whoever that is. It's going to be killing your deliverability like pretty quick. So you need to essentially de-risk having deliverability issues, because otherwise all your communication with existing customers, with investors, all that will start landing in spam. So you need to essentially have what I call secondary sort of dedicated infrastructure that's only used for your email motion, whether that's inbound emails, outbound emails, etc. And that's where our second sort of product comes into sort of play, where we released that back in January, and that's called Mailforge.ai, that literally allows you to set up the necessary infrastructure within sort of 5 minutes. So all the necessary domains, however many you need, and also mailboxes, and then you plug that into any sort of sending platform of your choice. And yeah, it has been, quite game-changing for us. We've been growing like crazy over the Q1 in particular. And we're seeing that appetite, from the just wider kind of sales community to solve the deliverability, because otherwise, cold email is dead really, unless you do something about it. So yeah.
Right. Well, a couple of things. So I did see that on Mailforge, you're the Chief Bacon Officer. So I'd love to hear more of why that title was the one you chose. How come bacon?
So for everybody that maybe doesn't know what bacon stands for, and typically that's for the European audience, bacon in sales means generating revenue for your company. That means taking home the commission that you generate ultimately, and we're all about bacon, right? So in the world of sales, people typically have all these boring titles like CEO, Chief Executive Officer, etc.
Right.
I'm just a Chief Email Officer at Salesforge and Chief Bacon Officer at Mailforge. Let's spice it up. Because I didn't want to be the typical CEO or the typical CEO of another company. I typically love to have a unique title, so that when people send me a cold email, they will address me as a Chief Bacon Officer at Mailforge. So yeah.
I love it. I can't wait to see the business cards. That'd be fun to make. So I've seen a bunch of AI tools, and so I'm going to ask you questions around. I'd love to hear kind of where you think you are on the spectrum. So you have like Lavender and Reggie and all these kind of tools. And then you have on the other side is like the Outreach and Salesloft, more of the automation email stuff. So where would you put Salesforge with all these tools? Because I want to make sure people kind of know where to put you.
Sure. So tools like Lavender and Reggie, they work really well with like Outreach and Salesloft. So mid-market enterprise, great tools. And we're not in that segment whatsoever. So we never
Yeah.
compete against Lavender. We never compete against Reggie, really. Never. We don't really compete against Outreach because Outreach really just tackles the enterprise segment where we are sort of carving up like huge market share right now is in the SMB segment where folks just can't afford buy essentially Outreach because Outreach charges over $100 per month just for a single seat. Whereas
Yeah.
in Salesforce, you have unlimited seats because I believe we're going to see very quickly the death of seat-based pricing because the whole world is moving towards a consumption-based pricing because it allows you to essentially align the cost of a particular software to the value that you generate significantly better than basing it sort of on seats where you're hiring a lot of people in sales, you're firing a lot of them. Essentially, there's no such a thing as 100% license utilization. And it gives also the smaller guys also significantly bigger chances to compete against the big guys or big enterprise companies. So I would say there's no overlap with those really companies. Where we do overlap maybe is companies that really specialize in deliverability. Let's say one of them would be Lemlist as an example, a French-based company.
Mhm.
And they're also pretty old school, arguably, in terms of what they do. And we're essentially a software that allows you to literally, a single user literally could have, let's say, 100 domains, 200 mailboxes, and that's one user running the whole software without the necessity of hiring, SDRs. So we're essentially living in a world where you're not scaling anymore your sales team, but you're scaling the software. So the way that I also look at it is, back in my days when I used to be in frontline sales, like I couldn't scale myself essentially.
Mhm.
There was no software that could scale me like really nicely, as in, give me the ability to, let's say, to 3x my output, right, in sales. So that's where also kind of the personal sort of mission comes in here, where I wanted to kind of give essentially an A-star rep and A-star software that would help them to scale that particular rep instead of hiring sort of the B's and C's in sales and giving them, that software.
Mhm.
It's better to actually have, less of a headcount and better headcount, essentially, meaning better reps, and give them just a significantly better tool, which will make your company a lot more profitable. And that's where, I'm typically go around and say, we can help your company become significantly leaner and meaner. So less headcount, less to manage ultimately, and just better ultimately tooling than the existing options that are in the market. That's how we look at the space. So it's more around, I would say, more around sort of kind of carving up a new segment maybe, where companies are looking at becoming, significantly more CAC efficient, so significantly leaner. They're not looking at the current dinosaur tools like Outreach and Salesloft, where you just add a bit of what I call Gen AI capabilities from Lavender or Reggie. They are looking at something different, something where both sort of Lavender and Outreach would exist, but would actually solve other problems that these companies have, like deliverability, for example, we solve, and the ability to actually scale that software very cost effectively, meaning charging for consumption of the actual software rather than for a seat.
Yeah, I saw a quote, I think it's from Sam Malton, when we said that we'll see the first one-person billion-dollar company because of tools like this that can scale your abilities, And what I'm hearing from you is not only could it work for a small business like, like the Academy, but also for enterprise, because on the other side, I'm the one in charge of our big sales team's tool stack, which is always adjusting because of people leaving and coming back. And it's a pain in the patootie to make sure we're really leveraging and using all the seats. So I love the thought process around, is it really important to have seats as the focus or the scalability on the other side, which is pretty cool. I like that a lot. Question for you, as far as like where you see yourself going with your own tool, like what is coming down the pipe that you're excited about? You say, I can't wait to get this next thing or next iteration of what's happening.
So we're really on the mission to make companies significantly leaner and meaner, right? So to do that, A, the software has to scale. B, you have to solve these huge problems like deliverability. You have to solve the copy problem, where you programmatically fetch data from the web, which is what a typical SDR does. And you essentially programmatically compute emails in any language. So you can cater that for the guys in the US and for the guys in Europe. But really what I am excited about, where we're going to be going down, and a lot of, I think, softwares are going down that path, more onto sort of autonomous capabilities ultimately, where the software does more of the legwork in sales, like, does the same repetitive activities like writing emails or writing emails or doing something like executing, adjusting, etc. So that's what we're going to be seeing, not just in Salesforge, but I believe a bunch of tools out there that are going down this path. And because a lot of software is looking at how can we, ultimately reduce headcount. Doesn't matter whether that is in sales, accounting, whatever the industry is, right? And to achieve that, you need the software to be, operating autonomously. Because guess what? If the software runs itself, it's cheaper, faster, probably better converting, which is still an argument that needs to be proven out. But it's going to convert better than a human. But the potential is definitely there with the sophistication of large language models, whether GPT-5 will be around the corner maybe later this year, etc.
Right.
You got to get to a stage where large language models are so sophisticated that they outperform humans by X. So we will definitely see some of that. And this is why I'm very excited for what's happening in the large language model space, being able to leverage a lot of that, training against our own data sets, bringing autonomous capabilities to clients and doing that across email, LinkedIn. That's the vision that we see for ourselves. And we typically say we're building the next pipe drive really in the space. We want to be the top 3 category player for sales execution, starting with email and solving that in full, and then kind of slowly but surely progressing over to the other channels and kind of building in autonomous capabilities and leveraging a lot of what we call our sort of secret sauce, and that's our data lake behind the scenes, where we're going to be doing multiple computations and ultimately unlocking machine learning capabilities, just like you see in the world of advertising or MarTech. So essentially Google uses a lot of machine learning models, or Facebook uses a lot of machine learning models to improve performance. We're going to see more of that in the world of sales. So ultimately, I'm replicating a lot of what works in marketing really well with structured data sets over to the world of sales and unlocking these sort of ultimately higher conversion rates by leveraging structured data. And that's a lot of that we're building right now behind the scenes. And again, it's also part of our mission to kind of make these a bunch of companies a lot leaner and meaner. Because I used to have a sales team of about 50 reps, and it was quite a machine to be hiring a lot of people every single month. A lot of people had to be let go, and it was just like never-ending process. Instead, it would be much, much better for the company if we just had a few reps that would be what I call the A players in the organization, and we would just give them the right tooling to execute, right, and scale their ability and their competence ultimately. And it would be better for the company, it would be better for everybody. And that's the kind of the world that I see in about 2 years' time, roughly, that we will.
So I hear like there's 3 different paths I want to talk to you about. So one is, I talk about this all the time in the academy about how do you do things better, faster, easier, cheaper, more efficient with AI, But what I'm also hearing that you're inferring is that when you have leaner teams, that means the possibility of jobs being taken away, right? How do you think about, this streamlining thing, which will essentially take away some jobs? How do you see the future of that type of thing? Because I'm personally really excited about it, but I could also hear people saying, but that means X number of people don't have jobs because they were the B players or whatever the case might be. What do you think?
I think it's better for everybody, to be honest. So if you're not really great at sales, so you're a B player or a C player, you should be maybe doing that's a thought process. So essentially, you'll be doing something else. And I think that's totally fine, But back in the days when robotics came in factories, also people were losing jobs and they just started to do other jobs, right? So we're going to see exactly the same. So, however, I think there are some places where you can't really replace humans really well. For example, enterprise sales is an example where the likelihood of autonomous capabilities and kind of fully building it out, we're fully replacing all the humans, highly unlikely. Because in enterprise sales or particular markets, like in Europe, let's say Nordics, etc., it's a relationship-based game, and people are less susceptible to automation. They don't like automation, even though it may provide a better service, etc. They just like humans, right? People like to buy from humans from the get-go, from top of the funnel. Whereas in markets like US, UK, France, Germany, etc., these markets, this is where kind of speed and efficiency like really matters, and people are totally fine to be speaking, I don't know, to AI agents, etc., if it provides a faster service, a cheaper service, etc. Right? So ultimately, things like AI agents will be a thing quite soon. And what will the people do? They'll be doing other jobs, is my take. So really, you have to up your game, and you have to think about sort of what I call your employability, and whether you're gonna be what I call the A player, so you always have a job in sales. Or you're like more of a B and a C, and then maybe you want to be doing something else because AI agents will replace you. So That's how I probably want to think about this. And that's totally fine. It's
Yeah.
for the benefit of everyone, really. If you're not really good at sales, like, why are you in sales, really? You should be doing something else, whether that's, customer success or, whatever the other jobs are there. So, yeah.
We're out there, yeah. Which it's interesting you pointed out the competency, because in enablement, that's what I focus on, is people's competencies and getting better, So I do think I've seen many B players become A players because they were dedicated to the craft. So I know it just takes time and learning from on the human side to get to that level, which is awesome. All right, two more things that just popped up to my mind. So one is AI tech. Are you using your own training data, using the back end of like Claude and ChatGPT, or how do you work the back end to do what you do?
So we use currently publicly available data models, but we will be transitioning to our own models and training against our own data, because publicly available data, it trains off like blogs and like essentially publicly available data, right? So instead, you should be training against what I call sales data, sales related data, right? So because it's kind of garbage in, garbage out, right? So even though publicly available models are really great, they could be significantly better. And for example, crafting an email really depends on the industry and the ICP that you target, right? So that's what it depends on. So that's what the type of data, for example, you should be training against. So that's why the publicly available models are not a fit long term. You should be definitely crunching, your own data that you have access to for the benefit of your clients. So
Yeah, I love it.
So that's exactly what we do already, and we'll be enabling that capability by the end of the year. And yeah, we'll be using our own data to help clients to sell better, more efficient, faster. So ultimately, with the conversion rate increase that we believe will happen, again, that goes down our sort of talk track of having fewer reps, because we are able to lift conversion rate by leveraging data. Because there's not a lot of data that's being leveraged these days in sales. People look at some sort of historical data, etc., where you're applying something like machine learning, so you're trying to predict the future. So, for example, when email should be sent, what sort of email should that be? In which language? How do you sign off? How do you start so many multiple things that really depend on the industry and the ICP and many different factors, really. And for that, you need data, and you need machine learning models, and you need Gen AI. There's a lot of things that go into that, and none of that exists these days. Whether that's Outreach or Salesloft, they're not doing a great job on that front. Arguably, they do have some of the features where they use machine learning and Gen AI, but arguably that's what I call very lightweight versus what is really possible these days. So we're gonna see more AI capabilities from various sort of AI tech providers, and it will be a race, I'll tell you that. So we're one of the contenders in the space to become really big. And we see the appetite also from the sales leaders all around the world, whether you're in the US, Europe, even Asia Pacific and stuff like that, where everything that we're seeing these days and what the technology can do for us, people are asking themselves, hey, can I do the same job with fewer reps? Can I can I drive a better conversion rate, etc.? So they're trying to figure this out themselves. And the software is just not moving fast enough, like the bigger players, because they don't necessarily have to, right? For example, if you work at Outreach, you have multi-year contracts with enterprise clients. Like, you're not really under pressure, right? So you're not really under pressure to be delivering innovation at a very fast speed, arguably. So that's why the smaller guys, startups like us and many others, they move much faster. So we will see a ton of disruption in this space across multiple segments, whether you're James, whether you're me. And so James is sales enablement, me on the, let's call it the email front or execution front. There's multiple kind of sections in sales across the pipeline where there needs to be, where we're going to see significant improvement, essentially.
Yeah, one of the things we do in enablement strategy I do is going from the revenue and working backwards. Like, you get revenue KPIs, some mini KPIs, and you have like some activity-based metrics. One of which is like response rates, bounce rates, conversion rates. It's all the stuff we can track to see, okay, how well are things going? Because sometimes, and sometimes based on the salesperson and the research, the conversion rates are different because of how they approach the actual person. So I'm curious, with yours, you mentioned conversion rates a couple of times. Do you have any case studies you could share of saying, here's what this customer is doing before, here's what they're doing after? Because I love talking more about the actual impact of what the AI can do.
Good question. So typically, whatever the baseline is in, let's say, reply rate, right? So you get a reply rate, let's say 2% right now. You're selling some sort of software. We typically see a 2x relative lift by leveraging Gen AI capabilities, as in doing computations, crafting unique emails, leveraging publicly available information, and doing that. So at least a 2x increase So that does not really matter whether you're a large company or small company, because we're selling the same things. The question always becomes, against the baseline that we currently have right now, what's the relative lift that we should see with this sort of capability? And typically we're being judged on sort of reply rates and open rates if you are tracking them, though I don't recommend, because it does harm deliverability. And it's a bit of a flawed metric, actually, open rates. So what we are being typically measured or are judged by our sort of users is, are emails landing in the primary? What sort of reply rates are we seeing, right? But ultimately, what they're looking for is generating pipeline, right? At the end of the day, like they want the pipeline. They believe cold email potential is the way. We're a great solution for that, and they're asking us, why Salesforge? Why Salesforge over Outreach or any other really software out there? But yeah, I mean, delivering emails in the primary is very tough these days, especially when you're seeing things like Gmail introducing restrictions in February.
Right.
Already, a lot of companies are seeing their deliverability tanking very fast, but not across everybody. But they're using Gmail for example, so they are looking at alternatives right now. What do they do these days? And we expect to see more restrictions coming from Gmail. And because of the deliverability issues that a lot of the users are going to be now seeing in Gmail, they'll be actually transitioning to probably Outlook, and then Outlook will start introducing restrictions. So just generally, like, email as a channel will become very tough. Whether you use AI or not, it will be very tough, like long term. And we'll see how the space evolves, because that's the interesting thing about email. It evolves every year. There's something sort of new in email. That's new AI tool or new ways of thinking about deliverability, etc. But AI is only AI is great and improves conversion rates, but really the first thing, let's say, that you need to think of in a channel like email is deliverability. Like, if your emails land in spam and they're AI based, like, what's the point of crafting these great emails, right? If they all land in spam. Right. So this is why you need to combine the stuff that you do on the AI front with another problem potentially that you're solving, let's say deliverability, right, in the world of email. Because AI on its own, yes, it can provide a ton of value, but I think it has to be combined with something else as well in a lot of cases.
Yeah. Well, last question for you. This is more kind of generalized. So you, as the CEO, CBO, Chief Bacon Officer of a startup company doing AI tools, for people listening who are like considering what AI tools to even consider, what's going to make biggest impact, like what's your advice to people saying, how in the world do I pick a tool based on all the thousands of them keep launching out there? How do you navigate that?
You have to figure out where was the problem that you have as a team. Is it on is it on conversion rate front? Is it on deliverability front? So identify the problem that you actually have, right? And what's the biggest problem that you currently have? And that's probably the AI tooling that you should be looking for, whether that's on G2, Capterra, etc. Right? So what sort of tools can solve that problem that you have as a sales org? But I think the one problem that I think a lot of people have these days is there are a lot of tools. A lot, and there's more and more tools popping up. That's hundreds of other tools popping up, and people have a very hard time to figure out which of the tools will actually solve the problem best, right, fastest, etc. And that's a tricky one. So G2 doesn't really answer that. Not like there isn't really software, because it really depends, client by client basis. Even from the same segment, this tool solves the problem for that client, but it doesn't solve for that client. So there's definitely a bit of a issue there. But the thing, if you are in sales, typically ask your peers. There's communities for sales leaders, right? Your VP sales, you go to Pavilion, for example, or Rev Genius, whatever that is, right? So you ask other peers, what is it that they're using? So word of mouth is a big thing, definitely in sales. That's probably what I would do. I would ask just my peers, how are they solving it? And for example, I'm a bunch of Slack communities myself, WhatsApp groups, Facebook groups, you name it. Even on Reddit, people are discussing the problems. And then, based on all these sources, I'm trying to make my own mind up. What is the best, let's call it AI tool that will solve that particular problem? So,
Yeah, I love it. I love where you're going with this, because I think that's where a lot of things are going, is to more of the scalability options. So I think you're on the forefront of what I think a lot more companies are going to be doing. And it's interesting to hear you talk about some of the standard tools versus what we have now, because I feel the same way about a lot of different categories versus where we can go. So I love the direction you're going. I'm super excited to see what we have coming down the pipe. Sorry. Well, Frank, thank you so much. I'm super excited for you. I know when this is coming out, you'll be talking about some other big news, which I won't let out here, but you'll be releasing some good news the same week we'll be doing this, which I'm really excited about. So congrats to you, and thank you for coming on to the show. I appreciate it.
Thanks for your time. Cheers.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to the GTM AI podcast. Please follow, subscribe, like, comment, and Come back for more.